TSN studios located in the mountain region of western North Carolina. You are listening to the Ourlads Football Radio Network.
All right, it's Friday, the 1st of September, 2017. I'm your host, Greg DePalma, and we have two Ourlads Football Network shows back-to-back to get you ready before the weekend, starting now with our fantasy football coverage. And then coming up at 3:15, we'll talk Pittsburgh Steelers and Washington Redskins football with Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, and Ken Marangolo, managing editor from HogsHaven.com. You can guess which teams they represent. But right now, we're going to talk fantasy football for the first time this season with my co-hosts, Jamal Murphy and Dan Weinreich. First, let me introduce one of my contributors on Jets Confidential Radio on PrimeSportsNetwork.com, which, by the way, airs a season preview edition on Monday at 5 o'clock. And he has also most recently been named the new Chief Fantasy Analyst at Ourlads.com. You can also listen to all his work as co-host of the Bill Roden on Sports podcast on iTunes. Jamal Murphy. How you doing, Jamal?
I'm pretty good. Like I said, I'm on a National Lampoon's vacation.
So if we hear the noise in the background, we'll understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, please excuse all the noise, the baby crying, and whatever else.
All right.
Hear. Who knows?
You're forgiven. That shows you how dedicated you are as a fantasy football analyst. That even on the drive with the family, you're taking time out to do this show. Okay, so let's also introduce a sports producer and fantasy expert who emailed me before the show to tell me he wanted about 5 minutes of his own airtime to confront and poke fun at Jamal's fantasy draft from Tuesday night. Dan Weinreich. How you doing, Dan?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for the intro and the opportunity. I'll have to try to beef up some of my credentials for next time, so I can, because I feel like inadequate next to Jamal right now with all of his,
he's got more titles than you. So
yeah, titles.
Yeah.
But Jamal and I have been competing in fantasy as long as fantasy's been around, so it's great to have an opportunity to make fun of him. I thank you for it again.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and first of all, you've been playing fantasy football for as long as it's been around, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, Jamal, when did we start? Like 99, 2000?
At least. We probably did it unofficially before that.
Well, I mean, we've been doing, a March Madness pool since we were 14 years old, and I definitely used to mess around with Stratomatic baseball. But yeah, as far as fantasy football goes, I mean, we're definitely 15 plus years strong. I don't know the exact year we started, but we're pretty obsessive. We usually are in about 4 to 6 leagues each, and there's usually about 3 or 4 of them that we cross over. We're both in.
Mm-hmm.
What can I say? We are slaves to this time of year. It's like nothing else matters once you hit mid-August.
All right. Well, we, again, as I mentioned, we did a draft on Tuesday, all three of us, the only one we're all together in. We'll get into that now and talk about, well, first of all, your team here, Dan. Odell loves Lena. And anybody who's an Odell Beckham fan must know this story then, right?
Yeah, I would think so. It is an old name. I probably should get a little more current, but it's from, around last year, right around this time, there was a story about Lena Dunham, the creator of the HBO show Girls, and her encounter with Odell Beckham Jr. at the Met Gala. And I won't say any more about it. You could just Google Odell and Lena Dunham, and you can find out all about it yourself.
Okay. All right. So OLL is Dan's team, and Isa Rap. What's Isa Rap, Jamal?
It's a rap. It's a. This is so the young kids might get it. It's a rapper 21 Savage reference. So go ahead and just Google that. Google 21
okay.
Savage.
Well, I'm glad you said that because that definitely confirms that I have no idea what you're talking about. So all right. So let's talk about what we got here. We don't necessarily have to go with where we actually, let's see. I had the second pick, and this was, what do you call it when picks are changed over? What would you say that term was, Jamal?
Snake draft.
Oh, snake draft. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm in that snake draft in my other league that I've been around for many years. So this is the only other draft I'm in. So that was cool. I like the snake draft. So I had the second pick. You had which pick, Jamal?
I had the the ninth pick.
Ninth. And you, Dan? What'd you have?
I had the 5th pick overall.
All right. What'd you pick, Dan? 5th pick?
Well, I had to go with my namesake.
You had to. You were forced to. Absolutely. He was
I
available.
tell you what, I actually kind of have been leaning a little bit more towards Mike Evans, but I figured in this particular league, I already got Evans in another league.
Okay.
You know, for me to have the 5th pick and not take Odell would be kind of, spitting in the wind.
Well, you actually have two receivers, two of your top receivers who are both in the news. Dan, Odell Beckham, and then DeAndre Hopkins, who just got the big deal. So now I don't know if he's got the right quarterback to throw to him. But, hey, he has a big deal, and he's the only really main weapon out there. Will Fuller now. Now, I don't know if that'll be a good thing or not. We'll find out. When did you get Hopkins? What round?
That was a 5th round pick.
4th
or 5th? Okay. That's not bad.
Round pick,
it was my 5th round pick. I got Kelsey in the 4th.
So you took Kelsey as your second receiver.
Actually, wait. I'm sorry, Greg. Let me correct that. I got Hopkins in the 5th round.
Yeah, 5th round. I think that's what Jamal said. Okay. So Kelsey was your second receiver, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Jamal knows your team more than you know your team.
Yeah, I got it down. You know what I'm saying? I live and breathe and stuff. You know what I mean? But yeah, he had Kelsey in the 3rd round. You know, obviously he wanted a tight end right there. I think Kelsey was going average around 37th overall. Dan grabbed him at 25. So you really wanted him, right?
Yeah, well, I feel like, you got Gronk and Kelsey, and then there's like a cliff.
Yep.
And
this is a tight end league too, so we should make sure we let everybody know that as well. You have to draft a tight end in this league.
Right.
So I really was eyeing Gronk, but what I always do is I always queue up a consolation prize. I hate you're sitting there waiting, thinking licking your chops, thinking you're going to get a certain player, and he literally gets taken the pick before you, and you're sitting there with the clock going, oh man, who am I going to take now? Because you didn't really think about the second guy in your queue. You didn't really, feel like comfortable taking him. So now you're scrambling. So I always try to have my top pick and then what's my consolation just in case. I know I wanted Gronk there in the 3rd round, and so Kelsey was my consolation prize. And look, I mean, he could end up being it would not be a stretch for him to be number 1 tight end.
No.
So that's why I reached a little
especially
bit.
Especially if Gronk gets hurt again, which can always happen.
Yeah.
Which can always happen. So it looked like because again, I wanted to talk about strategies as well. So it looks like, correct me if I'm wrong, just by going over all of our drafts, it looks like Dan, you favored the receivers. Now let's keep in mind you have 3 receivers, 2 running backs. You could either draft a running back or a receiver, and then you have a tight end. So that's your starters besides the quarterback, kicker, and special teams defense. Then there's 7 bench players, and you can take whoever you want there. But it looks like just when I'm looking at everybody's roster that Dan, that you favored receivers, that Jamal, you seem to be kind of both. You didn't necessarily seem like it looked like you favored one or the other, whereas I favored running backs. So I think that's interesting. Mm-hmm. Why did you favor receivers first, Dan?
Well, it's funny you said that, Greg, because I right before the show, I was looking over your team, and I was like, wow, really good running backs. I was impressed, by your running backs. So,
yeah, I have some wide receiver questions, though. That's the thing. That's strategy difference. But, yeah.
Yes, that's true. I wouldn't want I love your running back depth. You've got, I think, Marshawn Lynch, Mark Ingram, and Le'Veon Bell, just as starters. Then you got Doug Martin, Thomas Rawls, Jamal Charles, like that. You should be set. You shouldn't have a week where you don't even need to worry about the waiver.
And I can make a trade. I can trade a running back.
Yeah,
for
we
a
might
receiver.
need to make a trade.
Yeah.
because your wide receiver situation would make me very skittish.
Yeah.
So because you have a couple of really solid starters. But let me just pull up.
But they're question marks.
Right now.
I mean, you got Keenan Allen who has to stay healthy. Martavis Bryant has to stay on suspension.
Keenan Allen and Kelvin Benjamin, they're both dice throws, but I like both of them. I think they'll both be really productive.
If they play.
Martavis Bryant is another dice throw, who he definitely could be, but then after that, you're in trouble because all you got is Paul Richardson.
Yeah, that is just
and
based
boring.
on whether or not he can play a full season also, like he played in a couple of games last year when he was healthy. And look, Chris Hogan.
I actually do like your Kelvin Benjamin pick, though. You kind of, you got him in the 4th round. Carolina and Cam Newton had a horrible year last year. You got to think they'll bounce back. You got to think he'll have a better year than last year. He's coming a year off the ACL injury. So I think that Kelvin Benjamin pick is solid.
Yeah, I wouldn't have taken him if I didn't see his progress in camp and preseason. It looks like, from what I hear and what I've seen, that he's doing better. And that's important because I had him last year, and I wasn't happy with him. So I was kind of surprised that I took him, but I only took him because of that, because I needed to take a guy, and he did have high upside, but I'm taking a gamble.
I love that pick. I think that Kelvin Benjamin I had him also in a couple of leagues last year, and he was disappointing only because he had such high expectations from his rookie year, and then, of course, he was injured his whole second year. And then last year people had, taking wide receiver 1 numbers. And if you look back at the year, he wasn't super consistent, but he was very productive. He's still clearly Cam's number 1 red zone target. He's a big
absolutely,
body.
yes.
So I think 10, 12 touchdowns wouldn't shock me at all. And so that's great value. I also am impressed, Greg, that you took Aaron Rodgers and you still managed to maintain that running back depth because I'm mostly trying to avoid taking quarterbacks too early.
Okay.
Because it's so deep, and I feel like I have to snatch up the running backs and wide receivers. But you obviously managed to do it and not, sacrifice any of the running back depth. I worry about the wide receivers, and this is why, to answer your original question, why I lean so heavily on wide receivers.
Okay.
I just find that as you go through the season, they are the ones that there's the most sort of most variance in as far as what you're expecting before the season starts. As far as guys getting injured, you just, if I draft 5 good wide receivers, I feel chances are I'm going to end up using all of them over the course of the season.
All right. And what about Jamal? One of the picks that you had that you tell me exactly what round you picked him, but I believe you got him a little bit later than I thought he would go. And I think this is a guy that if I knew he would be there, I might have waited as well, and that's Matt Ryan. I mean, where did you get Matt Ryan?
I got Ryan in the 5th round, the 40th overall pick.
I mean, that's a good value, don't you think?
Yeah, 49th overall pick. He was averaging out at 40 in the average draft position of all leagues so far. So yeah, that's decent. Good value, decent value. But I love, in actuality, what he did last year. He was the number 1 quarterback in the league last year. Won MVP, had great numbers. And I can't see that changing this year, barring injury. So
I agree.
I like, his weapon. He has the same weapons as last year. He should be more confident. Hopefully, if he didn't lose that confidence in the Super Bowl, hopefully
I don't think so.
He survives that. But regular season, he should be fine. He should put up big numbers. Where is
he right now? Where did you say? So his average is. Where is he the average quarterback taken overall, Jamal?
I believe he's 4th. He's after Drew Brees.
So you see, that's not bad value because that's.
I think he's 5th after Russell.
Really? Okay.
No. In terms of all drafts to date, according to Fantasy Pros, he's the 4th overall quarterback.
Okay. And there's not really a major difference between Matt Ryan's stats and even Aaron Rodgers, I would think. I don't really think there's a huge difference. I think the difference is Aaron Rodgers has done it year in and year out, and Matt Ryan just had a big year last year. That's the big difference, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. But everybody knew Ryan had that potential. Everybody was just waiting for him to break out like that. So it's not like people aren't really considering him a one-year wonder. We'll see, though. Like I said, he has Julio Jones to throw to. He has Devontae Freeman in the backfield. Their offense was off the charts last year. He should keep it rolling this year.
Dan?
I think and don't leave out Tevin Coleman also, who's probably like the most productive second running back on any team, that he relies on a lot. But I think the thing about Matt Ryan is it's sort of expected that he will take at least a minor step back from last year. I mean, if it was expected that he would do what he did last year, he'd be the first QB off the board because, like Jamal said, he was the MVP. He's coming off, he was the best quarterback in fantasy last year. So I don't think anyone expects him to be quite that good. But the point is, even if he takes a little step back, he has 5 fewer touchdowns. He's still, high-end top 10 QB1. So to get him, 5th or 6th overall is definitely a high value.
Now, taking a look, I was surprised that, and I don't know exactly how the defense and special teams, teams fell. I was kind of surprised that I was able to grab Kansas City because I don't think they were the first defense picked. I don't even know if they were the second or third. So what is your strategy, guys, on and I know you always want to take them late, but where exactly, when you're thinking year to year, because it's really hard, of course, to predict these defenses from year to year. So what was it that you saw in this draft with the way that the defenses were picked? And I don't know if you guys got the order and how it went, like the top 5 or something, but did anything surprise you as far as how the defensive teams were taken off the board and when?
No, I think it was pretty predictable. There were 1 or 2 guys who jumped at defenses pretty early, probably in the top 10 picks. You never know. A lot of times you're auto drafting. You get caught auto drafting, they'll draft the defense pretty early. But you taking Kansas City, I think you took them with the 13th pick. That's fair.
Okay.
You took, you waited. You're basically picking up question mark players at that point that you don't know if they're going to perform or not. So if you see a defense you really like, you take them. I think that's a solid pick at 13. I always wait for the last 2 picks to pick a defense and a kicker. That's just my strategy.
Which in our league would have been 16 and 17?
Yeah, 16 and 17.
Okay.
I ended up getting Carolina, which is not bad. A lot of times in leagues, I end up dropping defenses and adding whoever has the best matchup by week. Yeah. So I don't really value defense too much. But if you end up picking the number 1 defense,
yes,
you're pretty set and you're going to stick with them all year.
Yeah, that's the only thing, Dan. Matter of fact, because I wouldn't. Now look, I don't know. I'd have to see exactly who I picked after, but I guess if you do see a defense that you think is elite, if you think a defense is elite, no matter what anybody else thinks, if you think they're elite, 1 or 2 elite, and you've got your starters, and you even may have a few backups, then maybe you do go for that. But then if you don't get that elite, then I think Jamal's strategy definitely kicks in, where it's like, okay, if I'm not getting my elite 1 or 2, maybe even a little bit later on when you go kicker with like a Gostkowski type or a Tucker type, and you go, you know what, I'm not going to get that guy. Okay, now forget it. I'm just going to wait until the last 2 picks because it's really a crapshoot after that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit looser on this than Jamal. I also don't put a real heavy value on defense and kicker. Mainly because I think it's just so difficult to predict. It doesn't always translate that the top defense, the best defense, is going to score the most for fantasy. And likewise with kickers, it doesn't always translate that the best offenses are going to have the best kickers. Sometimes it does, but a lot of times, like for example, Denver was pretty much considered the best defense last year, but they didn't score that way. And Gostkowski, who is, pre-ranked at number 1 this year, he was like, I don't know, 10th or 15th. And it's not like New England wasn't a productive offense. So it's really a crapshoot, and you can generally do well on the waiver wire. I will move ahead. I will maybe on my second or third to last pick, if there's someone I really like for example, in this league, I took Justin Tucker with my third to last pick. Because I feel like, we know he is the best kicker, so you have the best chance with him.
Sure.
But, if I didn't get him, I wouldn't have minded just waiting and picking up somebody off waivers because I do think it's really unpredictable. And same with defense. I took the Giants because, they were really solid last year. They've got a lot of great young defensive players, but they're playing the Cowboys week 1, so I might get killed for that. Who knows? But ultimately, I don't like taking a defense. You didn't go that early, Greg. I think you went in the maybe 13th round, and it looks like a lot of other people did too. That's fine. That as long as you've got like all your starters and a couple bench players, if there's a team you like, reach for it. But the tricky part also is when's the bye week coming? Because I think like Denver and Seattle, they're very highly ranked, but they have a bye week in I think 5 or week 6. Do you really want to plan on holding on to a second defense that early in the season, or potentially dropping a draft pick?
No.
So it's like, you have to punt something. So I do generally lean towards Jamal. I punt on defense and kicker.
All right, now you mentioned Dallas. Okay, so let's bring up Ezekiel Elliott, because this is an interesting situation. Elliott was drafted where in our league? Where did he go? 4th round or 5th round, or where did he go?
I'm guessing 3rd.
3rd, correct. He went with the 8th pick in the 3rd, so almost the 4th round. And which is about right, guys. That's about right where he should go, because even though there's all this news that's coming out, and I wish we had about an additional 20 minutes because there's a whole load of stuff there I'd like to get off my chest with everything that's going on there with that case. But there's now more of a chance, I guess, that he could play. So, but at that time, and all right, let me ask your advice. Okay, let me get your advice, both of you. Jamal, you got a draft and you're doing something next week.
Right.
The news hasn't come out yet, and it's still the same as it is today. Does your mind now change a little bit more, where if you were thinking, all right, 3rd round, now you maybe move him up on your board to the 2nd round, just because maybe there's a chance he could actually play?
I think so. He's one of the guys they kind of forgot about, because I had been doing rankings, a couple weeks ago. I kind of have him slotted for missing 6 games. That's a lot of games. But even at 6 games, I thought he was about a 4th, 5th round pick, because he's going to be a beast when he comes back. He's going to put up serious numbers. You're going to be fine with him as your number 1 running back. Now you hear the news that not only might games come off, and they probably should come off, because the NFL had no real, they didn't have any more evidence than the cops did, and the cops couldn't even, or the prosecution couldn't even press charges. So now, not only do you hear that he might, 2-3 games might come off of it, but he might not be suspended at all, possibly. So I think you definitely got to.
Yeah, I've noticed the ADP shift with Zeke has been like stark, because back in the beginning of the month, beginning of August, people were taking him sort of mid to late 2nd round, and then the news kind of took a bad turn. People were saying there was no way it was going to get reduced, and maybe it would get delayed, and so you didn't know. Maybe the 6 games would come in the middle of the season rather than the start of the season. Suddenly he was going down, and he dropped down to the 3rd, 4th round. But in just the last couple of days, now he's higher than he was ever. He's like in the high 2nd round. I didn't even see him taken late 1st round. So that's a really dramatic shift, and it's funny because it's all based on sort of unsubstantiated, reports from Adam Schefter and other experts we rely on to clue us in on this stuff. Ultimately, I think we won't know until we find the verdict. But the point is, even if it doesn't get suspended, like Jamal said, when you hit assuming you can make it to the fantasy playoffs, you have a stud running back. And so I wish I could go back in time and not take Travis Kelce, who I think I took, 3 picks before this, and take Zeke. I think that the guy who ended up with Zeke at the end of the 3rd round is just ecstatic with that pick right now.
Yeah, I will say, though, my gut tells me that he's still going to be suspended, but the question is going to be for how long, so we don't know yet. I hope it's either, you're either suspended or it's a Tom Brady thing, and he plays the whole year, and then maybe he gets suspended the next year, but they better not chop off any games. That'll upset the hell out of me, of course, unless I've drafted Ezekiel Elliott somewhere. But if you're not drafting Ezekiel Elliott, or you're not a Dallas Cowboy fan, I think that would be a terrible black eye on the NFL if they go ahead and reduce the number of games. There's no reason to reduce the number of games unless, of course, there is a specific reason, which I haven't heard of that yet. So take the case, move on, or go ahead and just hand down the 6, and then Ezekiel will have to fight it out while he's sitting out. But either way, like you said, even if it's 6, you should also. I mean, I look at this specific draft, and I do see there's some decent depth. I mean, if you're confident in your abilities to draft good talent, it's only one round anyway. Then taking a chance on a guy like Elliott, just like you said, Dan, knowing that, hey, he'll be back, and if I could just hang in there and I could be competitive, and I get Ezekiel Elliott back for the last 10 games or the last maybe the last 6 games of the regular season, including the playoffs, then maybe it's a win.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you draft and you only have 2 guys on your roster that you feel comfortable starting at running back, you've done something wrong. So presumably, you should have 2 other running backs you're comfortable starting until he's on the field. And then when he's on the field, you're golden.
All right. By the way, I want to remind everybody, and we will each week on this show, to check out Ourlads.com for the best depth charts in the industry. So I know how important that is when you're trying to take a look. Because it's one thing to go over fantasy rankings all the time on websites. It's another thing it's sort of like when you join groupthink, as opposed to being, your own person and having your own, doing your own research. And the groupthink thing, going into the rankings and all that, that's fine. You have to do that. But you also have to do it yourself. You have to say, okay, and when you do it yourself, you want to be able to go to a depth chart that you can trust and that within 24 hours it's updated. Which, by the way, the last time I checked like an NFL.com team depth chart, which was like a couple years ago, it's like they had players that were on their depth chart like 4 weeks ago. It's like, how do you not as a team even update your own depth chart on your own team webpage? I don't even know how that happens unless there's a marketing reason or a strategy reason that you want to fool people with in real life. But for fantasy fans, that doesn't work. So Ourlads has the best depth charts in the industry, and you can check them out all season long. And that also includes for your college football fans, too. Every team in the FBS. Okay, so before I let you go, Dan, because I think you probably have heard Jamal is no longer with us. Jamal.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, hopefully Jamal is okay. Hopefully it wasn't he's not pulled off somewhere on the side of the road on the highway. Hopefully it was just another. Hopefully.
I was going to say hopefully it's nothing. Hopefully he's not in a Chevy Chase situation in the middle of the desert in a closed road with no gas.
No, and no battery juice on his cell phone to call anyone. No, that wouldn't work. But anyway, so Dan, the season starts next week. We're going to be talking a lot during the season. And any other tips or anything like that you wanted to share, if you've already drafted, especially at this time?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, obviously, I just went through 3 days of 5 drafts. So, I was a little dizzy from it. It's tricky because, you don't want to take all the same guys, and then you end up taking some guys that you don't trust. I think my final closing thoughts for anyone who still has a draft left is just trust your instincts, because if you take a guy that you really believed in and it doesn't turn out well, that happens. But when you don't take a guy that you feel like is about to break out, that is what really haunts you. So, I remember someone offered me a trade a few years ago they were offering me Antonio Brown and Golden Tate in exchange for Brandon Marshall. This is before Antonio Brown became the best wide receiver in the NFL. But he became that year. And I turned down the trade, even though I felt really great about Antonio Brown, because I didn't trust my instincts. So, there are going to be guys who really exceed their potential. And if you have a sense about it, you want to make sure you follow up on that. And as far as for those who've already had drafts, don't feel bad. Every position, there are interesting guys out there on the waiver wire, So, depending on the situation for your league, whether there's a waiver period or you can pick them up immediately, definitely watch. I'd be glued to the red zone a week from Sunday. Watch every game. Pay attention to anybody getting hurt, who's getting more snaps than expected, either at the running back, wide receiver, or tight end position. Even I guarantee you, there's a couple quarterbacks who haven't been drafted. Whether it's one of the rookies down in Houston or in Cleveland, or someone like Brian Hoyer has a surprisingly productive. Mike Glennon has a surprisingly productive season. Like, one of these guys are going to emerge. So, don't be discouraged if you didn't get everything you want out of the draft. You can definitely, half of winning a league is the draft, and the other half is really being vigilant about the waiver wire.
And we'll talk more about the waiver wire next week because that's a good time to talk about it. Most everybody will have their drafts in, and they will be looking ahead at some of the players that will be available. So we'll have a much better idea when we talk next week. We have a little bit more time as well. So, Dan, appreciate your time. Looking forward to talking fantasy football with you throughout the season.
Same here, and looking forward to seeing you out on the fantasy gridiron.
Yes, absolutely. And I think I played Jamal this week, right? Is that the case? Do you notice that?
Oh, I did. Yep, you do.
Okay, interesting.
So we should have a fun time chatting about that next week.
Yeah, well, that's right. So looking forward to that. Dan, appreciate it. As long as Jamal makes it back from his vacation, I'll talk to you again next week.
Sounds good, Greg. Looking forward to it.
All right. Take care. All right. That is Dan Weinreich, and we want to thank Dan for joining us. And again, he's been playing fantasy football for a very long time, so that makes him an expert, no question about it, as well as Jamal, who, by the way, you can catch Jamal with me on Jets Confidential Radio on the Prime Sports Radio Network at primesportsnetwork.com on Monday at 5 o'clock, along with Jan Levine from rotowire.com. And we will preview. We're going to be on every Monday. Right now, I think we have it scheduled for every Monday at 5 o'clock. So, yes, we are sorry, Jet fans, but, hey, I admit it. Hey, Jan, the good thing, and maybe Jamal is in the middle because Jan is more of the pessimist. I'm the optimist, and Jamal's kind of in the middle, so it kind of works. So we'll talk more about it. But, hey, being the optimist doesn't mean that I'm going to be a sucker either. It just means I'm always optimistic. Well, not always, because I've actually been pessimistic the last 2 years, and that included the whole Ryan Fitzpatrick saga of the near playoff season. I was pessimistic. But it was, pessimism, though, is more of not just an attitude that you just carry around with you. It's actually something where you're going to be optimistic or pessimistic based on your intuition and your research. And that's how I do it. So in other words, I've learned a long time ago, if people are going to respect your opinion, you cannot be biased. And you're always going to have that little tinsy bit of bias in you, whether it's drafting players from your own team, even though I know Jamal drafted Powell and Forte, and he's a Jet fan. So, and that happens. Some like I haven't drafted Jet players before, or, just in your regular research for regular football or any other sport, you're going to have that, but you have to know when that is going to appear or it may appear, and when it does, then you kind of even let everybody know, hey, look, you know what? I can't make that call. I might be a little biased here. And just that's it. Let the other analyst give his opinion, because I really don't have one. I'll give you some other details, but I can't really give you my opinion on this game or this team right now. But overall, I have learned that is the best way for people to respect your opinion, to show that you are not going to be biased to the point of, oh yeah, they're going to be great, or negative where, oh, they're going to stink, because hey, in New York, especially with those New York writers, oh, the Jets stink. They're going to stink. They got Josh McCown. They're going to stink. Look, there's more to a team than that, and it all depends. And you can't judge teams on the outside like that. And that doesn't mean that they're going to be good. It just means that you have to really do the research and really come up with reasons to believe or not. And trust me, if you listen to my Jet show, and I've been doing Jet shows for like 15 years, maybe even more, every other year, I've got a different opinion. Oh, I think they're going to be okay. Oh, I don't like them. And sometimes sometimes I say I don't like them. They actually look like they're playing well. I still don't like them. And sometimes when teams aren't playing, or sometimes they're not playing well, but I kind of like them. I'm going to stick with them. I think they'll be okay. I think you get my point. Okay, now coming up in about 10 minutes, we're going to have another show. and Jeff Hartman, editor for BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, along with Kim Arangolo, managing editor from HogsHaven.com, will be my special guests on OFN to preview the season for the Steelers and Redskins, respectively. Don't forget to tune in again next week and all season long for more pro and college football coverage on Ourlads Football Network, just in case you're just a fantasy fan. Maybe that's kind of what you tuned in for, and you're not going to tune in to some of the other shows. Maybe you will, and we hope you do. Also, don't forget that we also supply daily content on Ourlads.com, including a college football futures report that I'm going to write prior to tomorrow's games, and then we'll talk more college football on the show and on the network next week. So that is coming up in just a little bit. Right here on the Ourlads Football Radio Network. And thanks for tuning in to our fantasy coverage, the first show for the fantasy season. We're going to have much more of this all season long. And again, want to thank Dan Weinreich and Jamal Murphy for joining me. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in just a few minutes with more football coverage on the Ourlads Football Radio Network.
Tuning in to this PrimeSportsNetwork.com production. Additional PSN programs are available on demand and conveniently located on our website, as well as our official YouTube and iTunes pages under Prime Sports Network. You can also check us out on Twitter at PrimeSN. And once again, thanks for listening to the very best sports talk coverage on the web.